Hello, seekers of self and explorers of life, and welcome to the Muse Life. This is the series where we navigate uncharted territories of self-discovery and personal evolution together. And I'm your host, Elle, a human design and self-discovery coach, and I'm here to remind you that you have the power to create your own path, and it can be one that truly resonates with who you are, your heart, and your purpose. Today we have a very special guest, and she's one who embodies the spirit of this journey. I want you to meet Melissa Lambour, a spiritual globetrotter who transformed her passion for exploration into her life's work as a Reiki AstroGeo guide, and she's the founder of Cosmic Roadmap. She is the torch bearer for those of us who are the endless wanderers. So she uses her unique blend of Reiki, Ayurveda, and astrogeography to guide individuals towards their next steps in life and in business. Melissa's journey has taken her to over 20 countries, combining her expertise in mechanical and biomedical engineering and sustainability management with her spiritual practice. We're going to get all into that, okay? And she doesn't just talk the talk. She actually walks the walk, living out her best life around the world, guided by her own cosmic roadmap. Her human design reflects her vibrant energy. She's a manifesting generator with emotional authority and a 1-3 profile. She's an embodiment of someone who has unlocked her unique potential and created a life that reflects her essence. So let's dive into Melissa's inspiring journey, gather insights, and pick up some actionable tips from her expansive life experience. And as always, if her story resonates with you, I want you to make sure you like, share, comment, and do not forget to subscribe, okay? Now let's meet Melissa Lambour. All right, guys, so this is the first in a series called The Muse Life for Elle Undefined, my YouTube channel, podcast, and wherever else this video and this audio ends up. And I'm so excited to have my very first guest, Melissa, and I will let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Melissa Lambour. I'm a Reiki AstroGeo guide, and I help spiritual nomads figure out where to be in the world with astrogeography, with Reiki, and Ayurveda. So it's all about energy and where you're meant to go. So intuitively, you've probably felt like you were drawn to a certain place. It might have been Bali, it might have been Europe. And when you start looking at your astro maps, that's when you realize, like, oh, it's the energy that was pulling me there. So intuitively, you've been called to different places, and it makes sense once you start looking at your astro map. So that is what I do. I make sense of the energies within your body and outside of your body.
I love that because intuitively I knew that Bali was a place for me even before I knew about geography,
and or then astrocartography,
yes.
Locational astrology, or relocation astrology. Yeah.
And then once I got a reading, it's like, oh, that's why it all made sense. Exactly. So I love that. So you explained to us what you do already, a little bit of what you do. I know a lot of us are multi-passionate, but what I would really love to know is, how did you get here? Like, what was the breaking point or the turning point in your life that made you turn or put your life in on a different pathway, make a different decision for yourself outside of the norm? Because I would say you living here full time, that's something that is out of the norm for a lot of people. They couldn't even imagine that. So how did you get here?
Yeah, and it's funny because you meet a lot of people here, and it's like they've lived here for so many years, and then you're kind of like, it is the norm, but the reality is that it took a lot for us to get here to this point. And for me, I was an engineer for 13 years. So the first few years of my career, I was like, I want to travel, and I need to figure out how I'm going to do this. I just don't know what I'm going to do. And 3 years in, I started saving. I started, putting all my money into my 401k and just saving for that moment that I could escape the matrix. And I think the breaking point was when I saw my mom. She was my parents are immigrants from Guatemala. So they came to the U.S. for the American dream. They worked factory jobs so we could go to college. So I ended up going to college, getting my bachelor's, my master's, and another master's because it never felt enough. And what I realized was that I was just fed back into the same matrix that they had walked into, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the breaking point where I was going to the same factories that my parents that, but I was just one step above. I was the engineer working with the operator, and my parents were the operators. So that was the point where I'm like, I need to escape. I can't stay here. And yeah, the moment that I started feeling that, I walked into a yoga studio, and that's when all the energy healing, all the spiritual practices came into play. Community circles, women's circles, that's where the real therapy that I had never really sought out happened. That's where the true healing came, because the stories started coming out and the shame. So that was the point. And that was probably like another 7 years after I had decided I want to travel the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But it's like during those 7 years, you were doing things to get ready to, like you said, to escape.
Exactly.
And it's interesting how, like, your parents' story, what they had worked hard for, it also, it came around full circle, but then it showed you that you wanted something different. Like, you wanted more for yourself. And you made a decision to say, okay, I don't have to only accept what my parents are saying is the right way, or what they've worked so hard for, which of course I know you're grateful for it. But it's like, I also know that there's more that's possible, and I hear that as I'm talking to different nomads. And you don't have to be a nomad to change your life or to do something different, but as I'm talking to these nomads that I'm meeting in these places, it's a very similar narrative of, like, you just have that moment, and a lot of times it is tied to what our family does or their experiences, and it opens up your eyes to something else that's possible for you. And then it's like, okay, I actually can make a different choice for myself and go in a different path. So I'm curious, what did your family think about you deciding to leave behind the engineering job, the status that comes with having that degree and having those, that title behind your name?
So at the beginning, when I would tell my mom, I want to travel the world, I want to do these things, I want to be an entrepreneur, it was like, you're going to throw away your career, all your degrees that you worked so hard for. And that's hard, right? And I had to come to terms with leaving that behind. I had to grieve, because it was years and years, like probably half of my life just getting these degrees, right? Over the course of my career. And I think little by little, my mom, she realized that I was very responsible, and she would see that I would be like, I'm going to Peru, by myself, just a solo trip, and it's like, wait, what? And her being from Guatemala, it's dangerous in Latin America, and I would tell her, a few days before I was leaving, or a week before, like, going to Egypt, because for her it was just not the norm to travel, right? Just coming from Latin America, going to the U.S. was it. That was enough.
That was like a dream.
It was. She had fulfilled her dream. So I think little by little, I almost trained my mom almost from the moment that I went to college, because I'm like, I'm going to Oklahoma for the summer. Not very far, but it's like, wait, you're leaving?
Right. So you were inching away, because where are you from? That's one thing that we
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah,
so for
I'm a
you
Jersey
to go to
girl.
Oklahoma, it's like far. That's still far for them, but not as far as you are now.
And it's funny, because I'm a traveler, but I'm a Jersey girl at heart. Like, I born, raised, and I left Jersey just a few months back, right? So I lived there my whole life, but I was always yearning for something else. Similar to my parents, but it was just a different dream. It was me escaping the matrix and not going into it.
So they had their dream and they fulfilled that. You have your dream and you're fulfilling it. Like, it's not like this is it, you know, like I feel like our dreams, like as we reach different levels, it expands more, and you're like, oh, so now I learned about this and I can actually do that as well.
Right.
Like it keeps, not that you're not satisfied, but you start to experience these different things. And
But
it's
also
like,
coming from a
oh.
different place, right? Where they were coming from a place of survival.
Yeah.
It's like a war-torn country, so it's like where do we go where it's really better, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know like you had to deal with what your family wanted and what they may say, but did you have your own like personal fears about you leaving behind this life and starting something else?
Of course, the comforts of a paycheck.
Yes.
I had a very comfortable engineering job. Everybody that I worked with were like, we're lifers. Like we're not leaving, because really it was like you would get a step grade, you know, like an increase every few months or every few years, and it was very comfortable. And it got to a point. That's why I stayed for 13 years. But, you know, it was a long time. But it was because I had planted that seed a decade before that I was ready. Like it just, everything was just coming into place. Like stepping into that yoga studio in 2019, right before COVID. And I think consciously, like we were all kind of getting prepared, because I didn't know that this was going to, the world was going to shut down.
But you didn't know for what.
Yeah, but I stepped into that yoga studio. I took my first yoga class there, and it was around the corner, like 5 minutes from my house. And I was drawn to that place, and it was a special place. The lady that owned it, she passed away a few years, but she opened it because she had cancer. So she opened it as a wellness center to help her heal, right?
Yeah.
And it really was a beautiful place where I learned Reiki. I learned how to work with my chakras, and discovering that we all have, you know, energy within our body and how to move it. And then that moved on to Ayurveda, and then the Astrogeography, where after I left a yoga class, somebody's like, you know, you can figure out where to be in the world with astrology. I'm like, no way. And I had already been to 25 like places around the world, like 20 places, and I started looking at each place and figuring out, you know, why things manifested the way that they did. And my engineer brain was just like looking at all the patterns.
Right.
So just like you with human design, right? You start seeing these patterns with the different, you know, different places. And that's where it all kind of opened up.
It's like once you learn about like one modality, and I feel like yoga is kind of like a gateway drug for most people. Like you learn about yoga, and then when you're in the studio or you're around these people, you start to notice or learn about different things.
I think subconsciously it relaxes you, right? And it just allows you to tap into a whole different realm.
And you're open. It's like, okay, that curiosity is sparked.
Exactly.
Because I feel like I took my first yoga class in college. It was like, they had it as a course. It was 1 credit, but the class would fill up so quickly. So you had to like really fight to get on it. And, you know, the scheduling time opened up at a certain time. I remember setting my alarm. I got up early. I'm like, I'm getting into this yoga class. And I was so excited. And once I got into it, I'm like, this is hard.
It is. You're in these positions of like, oh my God, can I do this? But then, you start trusting yourself, right? And every class you start getting better. Because mine is the bridge pose, or the one where you lift yourself. Like after a few weeks, I'm like, I can do it.
I can do it. It really does open you up and challenge, not just challenging your body, which a lot of you know exercises do, but it challenges your mind. And so that's one of my favorite things about being in Bali is you can do yoga anywhere, of course, but it's something about doing it here that just makes it like, oh.
And what was magical after that yoga studio, you know, stepping into that yoga studio was the retreats. Like not even maybe a month or 2, I started going to a few retreats, and that opened me up even more. And I'm like, what are retreats? Like I thought it was for, you know, fancy like rich people, but it was friends that were coming from Bali. There was one girl that came from Bali, and she also planted the seed that I should come here. And so it was all really, it was meant to be. Like all the people that were meant to come into my path
I'm always like synchronicity.
Yeah.
Oh my
When you're in
goodness.
alignment, then you start attracting the
Yeah.
resources, the people, everything.
And that's the thing, like once you get curious, like for me, I'm like, you have that moment where it's like, okay, there has to be something else out there for me. You get curious, and then as you open your mind up, you start to attract all the resources and the expanders that you need. And when I say expanders, it's people, like you see people in your life or on the internet or wherever, and they're doing something that you become curious about. And it's like, well, how did they get there? How did they do this? And then the answers start to come to you. You don't really have to force it.
That was the shift, right? Because I was an engineer where everything was fed to you, right? The formulas, they're all in the books. And I almost felt like I couldn't do things intuitively because you needed something to back up why you thought that way. And just stepping into yoga, into energy work, that's when I'm like, I can trust myself. I can trust what I'm feeling. I can trust the messages that are coming through. So it was a major exercise of surrender and just trusting what messages, what gifts I actually had.
And I think that's so important, like building that self-trust and being able to trust your intuition. Because the way we're taught, it's always to look outside of ourselves for the answers. It strips the self-trust. It strips your innate knowledge. Like you think you have to consult someone else or a book or someone, everything else but you.
Exactly.
And it's like once you start to reconnect with your own inner wisdom, things change. Like I feel like that's how it's been for me. You know, once I made a decision that I wanted something different for myself, and everyone else, like my family or friends, are like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I might not always make the very best next step, but I know I'm headed in the right direction. I have this sense of certainty that I'm always headed in the right direction. Even though if you take a little detour on the side, you make a mistake, nothing is really a mistake. I think they're all just experiences that we learn from. So,
and it depends the people that you surround yourself with, right?
Yeah.
Because if they're on that path of entrepreneurship, of risking, of doing things for themselves, and I think you get a little further. As long as you're around someone that's one step ahead, you're on the right path.
I completely agree, and that's why I'm launching my empowerment collective, because when you don't have those people around you, you know, you have the people that are only sticking to the straight and narrow or what the blueprint is, the defined societal path. They can start to feed their fears and those, you know, limiting beliefs to you. And so I think you need to be surrounded by people that are like, okay, you know, like you can do this, like you can, because I just believe anything that we want in this life, we can. And I know people are like, what? Shut up. I really believe that we can create the life that we want, you know? It's just you have to be willing to take that first step without knowing exactly how the path is going to play out. There is no blueprint. There is no engineering books that's going to tell you exactly how to live your life. So.
But the beautiful thing that I've realized with entrepreneurship is that somebody has already done it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to kind of replicate what they've done and kind of, you know, tweak it and make it your own. Because back in academia, I was like, you're copying someone. But you have your own story, right? And that is what makes it unique. So you could be doing astrology, you could be doing human design. We're all doing the same thing, but it's your story and how you do it and your flavor of what you do. That's what makes it unique.
I love that, your flavor, because we all have our own flavor. Like no two people are alike. So even if we're both doing astrogeography, the way I present it or share it with someone is going to be completely different than you. And so that's another reason why, you know, people get worried about competition. And it's like, just be you. And you'll attract the right people and opportunities. So.
Yeah, there was somebody that did Reiki. She at the beginning she didn't want to be my friend, and I'm like, why? Because she thought I was her competition, and then she realized what I was doing was completely different. And you know, I respected the way that she did things, and then she finally respected how I did things. And we became good friends. But
Yeah.
there was a bit of that like,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna take
Gonna
my
take my
customer,
people.
yeah.
My people.
Right, but in the end, it was it's like I don't do things like you, and then she realized, you do your own thing as well. So
Yeah. So if someone was coming to you and they're curious, or maybe they want to make a change in their life, they're tired of their regular job, and I don't think everyone has to be an entrepreneur either.
no,
Everyone doesn't have to move to Bali or do all these things that we've
exactly.
chosen to do. But if they do want to make a change in their life, make a shift, what would you say the first step should or can be?
Yeah.
Because I don't even want to say should.
Right,
Everyone
right.
has their own things. But
Yeah, because the people that I work with, people that are in transition, right, where they're leaving a career, or they just graduated, maybe they're leaving their relationship, whatever it is. So I realized that I wasn't working with digital nomads. I was working with people in transition. So that could be mothers, that could be students. So those people are usually not looking to travel.
Yeah.
So I started my business during COVID, and I realized that astrogeography wasn't necessarily just for the travelers. It was to bring these energies from around the world and inspire you to bring them into your life. And how do you do that? That could be bringing crystals, bringing textiles. Like I during that time, I wanted to be in Malaysia. So batik, this beautiful textile art, using wax and dyes. That was something that I always wore. Every day I was in my batik kaftan, and that was bringing in the energies of Malaysia, of the artist, of the land. So that is what I do with astrogeography. So I don't work with people that are necessarily, just the spiritual nomads, but people that want to bring in those energies from around the world. And they could have lines in France. So it's as easy as making a French dish, maybe incorporating like a French pastry, a croissant in the morning, and just making it feel like the places that they have these energies. So if they have Venus energy, which is all about love, you can start bringing in that love energy by just incorporating cuisine, bringing in like fabrics, crystals from a particular place. I've had clients that actually have a little altar space with their crystals, with their textiles, maybe pictures, little souvenirs from different places. And when they're called to connect to moon energy, they just grab a crystal or a pendant, and they wear it. So wearable art is my favorite. So.
Because the way you're applying it or helping your clients apply it, you don't have to travel.
Through
You
the
can do it.
senses.
Yeah, you can do it anywhere and actually have it be integrated into your day-to-day life. It doesn't have to be this thing that you go off to do for a limited time.
Exactly.
So that's amazing, because I think one thing about all of these spiritual tools, energetic tools, people can struggle with them because they don't know how to apply in their day-to-day.
Yes.
It feels like something that is just out there.
Right.
So I love the way you're presenting that. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And then, of course, with Reiki, like you're looking at the chakras, and then feeling what's in your body, and moving that. So if you need to ground, then going out into nature, right? Like we took a walk through the rice paddy fields.
Yeah.
Like that was amazing for me, and not something that I usually do, but being in nature, that allowed me to reconnect to the earth. So.
I love that. So you've shared a lot about your journey and some of the steps that you've taken to get to where you are now. Now I'd love to know, like, what are you looking forward to? Of course, we're always living in the present, but what are you looking forward to in, the upcoming chapters of your life?
It's interesting that you mentioned chapters, because I'm writing another chapter for a multi-author book. So I've been in 3 other ones in the past in the She Speaks series. So it was Legacy Speaks, Lineage Speaks, and Divinity Speaks. So that was the last one was out last year on Amazon. But I'm going to be part of a 55 Faces book. So that will be talking about pretty much my journey here. because I feel like each chapter I'm going through some process of this identity crisis. Like, who am I right now at this moment? Because we're all in evolution.
It always changes.
It always changes.
Yeah, we're always evolving.
And what came through, I went to Ahmed this weekend to write and see what I was supposed to clear. And what came through is like, just write what you've experienced these last 9 months. So I felt like I was in Mama Bali's belly for the last 9 months, and I'm finally being birthed. So this chapter is being birthed, along with just other connections to these other 54 women that are going to be in the chapter.
So there's 55 authors in this multi-author book.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it also has a sister book. So the sister book will be 55 Faces in Africa. And all the proceeds from the first book go towards creating the second book, the sister book. So all those 55 ladies from Africa don't have to pay to share their story.
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful part of that project. So that's the exciting thing that's coming up. And then stepping into more bamboo projects. I was meant to come to Bali during COVID to do a bamboo workshop. So I am going to be talking to people and, seeing where I can start doing some bamboo projects.
And do you mean like the literal natural material bamboo?
Yes, bamboo architecture. Because
Okay.
if you look up bamboo U or ibuku, there are some of the lead bamboo designers or bamboo architecture designers on the island. So that's what I want to do.
Okay.
So yeah, I do see in my future a wellness center, a retreat center of some kind, all built from natural, sustainable bamboo.
I love that because because that also uses your background in engineering.
And that was the natural, that was the natural step. I'm like, I'm going to leave engineering to get into bamboo. But there was a bit of an interruption there with COVID, and they're like, no, you're not going to Bali for that. I think the spiritual communities were meant to bring me to Bali. And then from there, I was meant to see like, this is what I want. Because you step into yoga barn and you see these amazing structures. So that's allowing me to understand like what people want and what I want to create for myself. And I may build that in Ahmed. Like I felt a deep connection to Ahmed. It's far from here. It's like almost 2-3 hours.
Yeah, I want to go. And Ahmed is a place in Bali. It's beautiful, beautiful. I'll have to put some pictures in it.
Yeah, it's Mount Agun, like right against the sea. And the thing with Mount Agun, if you're in the middle of Bali, you can barely see it sometimes because of the clouds. But when you're over there, you can go into the sea and just wake up to it. You're just swimming with Mount Agun, and you're like, just fill me with your fire.
Wow, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But I love how it's like what you plan on doing, in this future, whenever that happens, is taking your past experience with all of these new parts of you and it's putting it all together,
Exactly.
I think all of our experiences and our jobs and all of these things, they serve a purpose, even if it's not something that, it might take a different form. It might not always be in the same form or look a traditional way, but it also plays a part.
Yeah, like being curious, it's not aimless, right? Because I feel like we do have these divine nudges to do things for a reason. It all kind of comes together, just like my service where it combines the Reiki, the Ayurveda, and the Astrogeography. Like it doesn't make sense, right, on paper, but then when you bring it together, it's like, okay.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to link all of your offerings and even just some of the other things you've mentioned, the books that you've written or been a part of, all of that. And also Ahmed, like people need to see how beautiful this is. Because I definitely want to go there at some point this year because I saw your stories today or the other day and you posted it. So
yeah, and it was funny because the only way I got there was on this motorbike adventure that I was like, it was a 3-day motorbike adventure. My friend who I met through a bamboo architecture workshop, he was leaving in a few days, and I was like, hey, do you want to go on motorbike adventure around Bali? I'm like, sure.
Right.
So yeah,
I love those random yes moments that turn into like these memorable experiences. Like, oh my God, I'm so happy that I did this.
because
Yeah.
that opened me up to that beach, that Ahmed beach. I would have never gone back. And then I went to a summit recently, and the girl's like, "I'm going to Ahmed," and I'm like, I think
So this
I want
keeps
to go
popping
this.
up for
Yeah,
you.
I'm like, I think I want to go this weekend. There's something there for me. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
you.
much for joining me in this conversation. Like I said, I'm going to share all of your info, and yeah.
And people can also check me out at Cosmic Roadmap, my podcast. So that's on all the platforms, and we'll be recording an episode too. So.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, and I will see you guys next time.
Bye.